Hey guys, I am back in video form, got myself a brand new clip-on mic, but if you saw my review for The French Dispatch a couple days ago, you already knew that. So nevertheless, let's just continue with the Nightmare on Elm Street series and talk about the 7th movie that some of you thought I wouldn't be reviewing. I don't know why that was the case, considering that at the end of my Freddy's Dead review, I clearly said I would be reviewing Wes Craven's New Nightmare. But whatever, let's just jump into the review. Hey everyone, it's Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson. Welcome to the channel, and this is my review for Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which came out in 1994, just 10 years after he wrote and directed the original Nightmare on Elm Street. It's the 7th movie in the franchise overall, but is the only one to take place outside the series continuity. It's set in a fictionalized version of our real world, and you have Heather Langenkamp, Wes Craven, Robert Englund, and John Saxon playing fictionalized versions of themselves. The movie is really about the 10-year anniversary of the original Nightmare on Elm Street film. Heather Langenkamp is now 30 years old. She's married to a special effects technician. The two of them have a son, but weird things start happening in the forms of earthquakes. Heather starts having these nightmares involving an evil entity that takes the form of Freddy Krueger, and it seems like the only way that she can actually stop this entity is to make another Nightmare on Elm Street film. It's kind of a bizarre plot when you really think about it, and if I say any more of it, I'm just going to be confusing you. The best advice that I can give is just watch the movie itself, because this is one of the best films of the franchise. It's so funny to think that the last movie before this one was Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare. And when I reviewed that movie, I mentioned that I was so upset by it and so sad that I had to jump right into Wes Craven's New Nightmare, as in watch the movie, which maybe that's where the confusion from some of you guys came from. But basically, I ended up doing a double feature of both Freddy's Dead and Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and it's so weird going from the second worst film in the franchise to one of the best films in the franchise. Like, the difference in quality between films is staggering. And the best way I can describe Wes Craven's New Nightmare is creative. It's obviously many other things, one of them being scary, but the premise for this film is just flat out inventive, it's imaginative, it's everything that the Nightmare on Elm Street movies frankly should be. And in ways, this is very much the prototype for Scream, which Wes Craven would direct 2 years later. It's so funny to think that this was Wes Craven's last movie before going on to direct Scream, and Kevin Williamson, the writer for the Scream franchise, has cited Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, as the inspiration for his script. So in a way, both Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees were directly responsible for the Scream franchise, which, considering how meta that movie is already, it's no surprise at all that two of the big kings of the slashers would help define it. But back to Wes Craven's New Nightmare. The reason why this movie wins massive points for being as creative as it is because it takes the popularity of Freddy Krueger in the real world and pretty much uses it as a way to bring Freddy Krueger back to life, or at least an entity taking the form of Freddy Krueger. It's kind of like with the Slender Man back in 2012, almost 10 years ago, where the Slender Man was so popular that people started to believe that he was actually real. And I experienced this firsthand because I went to school at UC Santa Cruz, which is in the middle of a forest, the very setting where the 8 Pages game takes place. And it also helps that the evil entity is scary. This is the scariest that Freddy Krueger has been since the original Nightmare on Elm Street. While he has been scary in Freddy's Revenge, Dream Warriors, and I'll even argue for the Dream Master, he's never been as terrifying as he is in this movie. The new look for Freddy Krueger is more demonic, it's more scary. There's something about his eyes that are just more haunting. The finger knives feel more threatening than ever, especially now that the thumb comes with a knife. And this entity does not crack any jokes. Gone are the cringeworthy puns. Gone are the one-liners. Gone are the Looney Tunes-esque mannerisms that we saw in Freddy's Dead. No, the entity here is scary. The closest that this entity ever gets to spewing out a pun is when he kills the babysitter and goes up to Heather Langenkamp's son Dylan and says, "Hey Dylan, ever play skin the cat. And he doesn't smile during that sequence. He is just flat out menacing. And the kills in this movie are great. The big standout is when Wes Craven redoes Tina's death from the original Nightmare on Elm Street, but with the babysitter, where she's levitating in the air, dragged up the wall into the ceiling. It's just so brutal, and this time we get to see the entity actually perform the kill. And it's such an amazing kill that unfortunately gets undercut by Miko Hughes. If there is any weak link in this movie, I would say it's Miko Hughes as Heather Langenkamp's son, Dylan, because he's not really that good of an actor, and a lot of the facial expressions he makes are just too goofy. And the way he cries for help after the babysitter's been killed, it's kind of laughable, and it completely undermines the incredibly scary kill that we just witnessed. And then I also think that there's some special effects sequences that don't quite hold up. I'm not going to say they're bad, but they're very much of the 1990s. And the one special effects sequence that I'm mainly talking about is when Dylan and Heather are crossing the freeway. And you can clearly tell that both actors are not in an actual freeway because, you know, that would be dangerous as hell. And then you see the entity's claws lift Dylan up in the air so he doesn't get hit by a car. It's very much a compositing shot, and it's so obvious, but that was what was available at the time, so I can't really blame them too much. And then as for Heather Langenkamp, this is her movie. I never understood why people said she was bad in the original Nightmare on Elm Street. With Dream Warriors, I can kind of see that she's the weakest link, but here, I don't want to hear any criticisms towards her performance in this movie because she commands every scene that she's in. The relationship that she has with Dylan is very believable. It's a very believable mother-son relationship. And when watching her, you're clearly reminded why she is one of the pinnacle final girls in the slasher genre, right up there with Laurie Strode. And this is the best performance that she's given in the entire franchise. Not just playing a fictionalized version of herself, but when she eventually has to accept the role as Nancy Thompson one last time, she just is excellent. And the big climax of the movie where she fights the entity and kills it once and for all, not only is foreshadowed brilliantly because Dylan is a big fan of the Hansel and Gretel story, but also it feels more like a proper conclusion and a proper death to Robert Englund's Freddy Krueger, even though this wasn't the last movie with Robert Englund in the role. There's no cliffhangers, no cheap jump scare at the very end of the film. It ends exactly where it needs to end, and it just felt like a natural conclusion to this character. There is so much to admire about this movie that I can't sum it all up in this single review. The way it portrays working on a movie set feels very realistic as somebody who has worked on a couple of films and TV shows before. There's a lot of really good cameos in this movie, from people like Lynn Shay, who is the star of the Insidious franchise and who was the teacher in the original Nightmare on Elm Street, and Tuesday Knight, who played Kristen in Dream Master. She has a non-speaking role, but if you're a big fan of the Nightmare on Elm Street series, you'll be able to pinpoint her. And the time at which this movie was made could not have been more perfect, because Heather throughout this movie is haunted by an evil entity taking the form of Freddy Krueger, almost like it's stalking her. This happened around the same time that Heather Langenkamp herself had a real-life stalker, so that was worked into the script. Soon after this movie started production, the massive Northridge earthquakes took place, and given that there are earthquakes featured in this movie, they were able to get footage of the real-life disasters that happened and put him in the movie. So talk about the planets aligning and everything just coming together for this film. And well deservedly, because this truly is one of the best films of the franchise. It's creative, it's scary, it brings a level of freshness that the series desperately needed, and I'd say at the end of the day, it's worth seeing in your lifetime. It's not as good as the original Nightmare on Elm Street, although right now, I actually think I like it more than Dream Warriors. Mainly it has to do with the fact that Heather Langenkamp is a better actress in this movie than in Dream Warriors. And if I'm going to be completely honest, I might like this movie more than Scream. Scream is great, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like this movie is more inventive and more imaginative than Scream is, which is pretty much, hey, here's a horror movie cliche. But this movie unfortunately was not a box office hit when it came out, and watching it I could honestly see why, because I don't think people were quite ready for meta horror movies. Maybe in 2 years they'll be ready. So yeah, if there's one upside to Scream is that it definitely is a landmark horror movie more than Wes Craven's New Nightmare is. If you haven't seen this movie, or you don't feel like watching any of the other sequels to Nightmare on Elm Street, I'd say give this one a chance because it truly is something special. And there you go, that's my review for Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Now, this would be the last solo Freddy movie featuring Robert Englund, because the next movie in the franchise would be 2003's Freddy vs. Jason. But unfortunately, I can't review that movie quite yet, because there's one last solo Nightmare on Elm Street movie I have to review, and that's the shitty 2010 remake. Oops, did I just say that out loud? Yes, I did. I did watch the remake before recording my review for Wes Craven's New Nightmare, but you'll have to wait until Friday to hear my full thoughts on the remake. But right now I want to know what you guys think about Wes Craven's New Nightmare. If you've seen it, what did you think? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there is only one. Hello everyone, I just want to say thank you all for watching my review for Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button to get notifications. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, go check out my Twitch channel, and support me on Patreon. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a good day and take care of yourselves.